And now, your reigning, defending, greatest wrestling podcast of all time. This is Let Me Book the Territory, the podcast for smart marks and nostalgia nerds. Featuring A-Dub.
On site, and it's on site.
B.A.
How can the heel heal off on the heel when the heel is healing?
And E-Ray.
No wrestling moves. Just hands. Just hands.
Powered by the Embrace the Turn Up Network. In partnership with the Inaudible Ruckus Podcast.
Welcome to the madness here.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of the middle of ages, not oldest ages. We don't cater to the retired folks, but anyways, you know what time it is. Let Me Book the Territory is back. We are here. We are recording on a Wednesday. It is Valentine's Day. There is nothing but love in the air for what is going on in the wrestling realm. It is your boy A-Dub, the pod god, the pod tribal chief, if you will. The Dub Show. No way I'm Dub, the Heritage Pimp Cup champion in the motherfucking building. And joining me back from his hiatus off of Mount Money is the guy, Chinstrap Jones himself, the undisputed champion with the WWE and the WCW title over his shoulders. B.A. DiBiase is in the building. What up, B.A.?
Like Chris Jericho in 2002, baby. Both of them boys over my shoulders. Yes, it's I, B.A. DiBiase, back in the building, a.k.a. Black IRS, a.k.a. the beef of the motherfucking East, B.A. Bigelow. Man, it feels good to be back, to be talking these graps. I missed you gentlemen very much last week. Y'all held it down as you always do. Shout out to the wise man for the extra vocals in there, because literally as you guys recorded that and got it out, the world exploded in professional wrestling. As far as the most entertaining non-wrestling thing I've ever seen, I could say. I can't think of a segment more entertaining that didn't involve a wrestling ring.
Boy.
In pro wrestling in a long time, if ever.
Boy, man. Shout out to the homie E-Ray, who is involved in an Iron Man match right now, cannot join us. It's all right. Come on, E-Ray, just pull out the victory. We're praying for you, buddy. But yes, so we recorded last Wednesday knowing that this press conference was coming up, thinking that it was not going to be of huge consequence. You know, we thought, they were going to either ride out with the Roman and Rock thing and figure a way to either plug Cody in somehow or have Cody go against Seth. And boy, were we fucking wrong.
Man.
So I was watching live. So I want to ask you, BA, as you read through the group chat, what were you thinking? Because you did not watch live. You went back and watched it later. What were you thinking as you read through the group chat as me, Sean, and E all collectively lost our fucking minds at what was going on?
I was happy because I was very much on the opposite end of that spectrum after that SmackDown, where they were testing things out but not testing things out, and we'll talk more about that later. But I was happy because everybody seemed happy with what they saw. There wasn't differentiating opinions too heavy one way or the other. I didn't have to pick a side. Usually when you open up the text chat of that magnitude and like sometimes I'll come back and look at it and it's like a couple texts. Sometimes I'll come back, there's 126 unread messages. To the point in which that I've had to silence this chat and there's no offense, I love all of these guys in it, but BA be busy, man, and I have ADHD. And if I hear or see things that I'm very passionate about, I will drop $1 million deal to go argue with these guys about why I believe it, whatever. And thanks, Dwayne, for that, by the way. For that Friday night, I stayed up for 3 hours arguing with E-Ray in our chat about that promo that meant absolutely nothing at this point. So, yeah. I was very happy to see I didn't have to pick a side. Everybody agreed what was happening, what they saw was best for business, and I immediately closed it because I didn't want to read further. And I was like, I gotta wait till it gets uploaded to YouTube so I can officially watch it and take it all in.
All right.
At least that segment.
Yeah. So your first thought when you saw Cody walk out and say, "This is some bullshit."
That Brandy Rose fed him that line. That sounded like some Brandy. I think Brandy Rose said that when during a Jade Cargill promo in AEW. When I think about it,
me.
I feel like it was something to that tone when she was on her saying calling people bitches and stuff, and just really leaning into every consonant and vowel in that word. So that's what it reminded me of. And then she probably was like, Cody, say some bullshit when you go out there. He was like, right, B.
You're right, B.
Yeah. So no, I love it. That whole thing, it added an element of more realness, even though we know this is all kayfabe, but it finally gave us reason to buy into the kayfabe. And I think that's something that's been missing from wrestling.
It felt real blurred lines, if you will. Shout out to Robin Thicke.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you were like, all right, this feels real corporate, and you know how the fans felt, and then Cody kind of echoing those sentiments, and you were like, oh shit. And then he kind of cuts his promo where he's like, nah, you don't get the right to choose a challenger. I do. I think the cool part about it was when you're watching the story go, had Roman not said that part about, hey, I'm choosing my challenger now, Cody probably would have ran along with it. That's the way it feels.
That's a very good point, though. Good point there.
The way he comes out there, he's talking like he feels completely disrespected. Like, nah, I'm picking who I'm challenging. And you know what? It's you now. Fuck you. Let's do this. And then he says, if your grandfather was here, he'd be ashamed. If his grandfather was here, he'd be ashamed. How can either one of y'all be the head of the table when I've been the one cooking for 2 years? I was like, oh shit, Cody Rhodes is a battle rapper now. I fucking love it.
Oh yeah.
And then Rock stepped up and slapped him.
So I get why, but I don't know, Dwayne. He wasn't disrespecting your family like the man says on Raw.
He wasn't.
He wasn't gonna let Roman bitch him anymore, because Roman was, before all of that come out, Seth is supposed to be introducing Cody, and then as he thinks he's introducing Cody, the 7-minute interest music of Roman Reigns hits, and he comes out and stares for about 2 minutes and does his thing, and then he gets right into calling out Seth, continuing his promo from previous SmackDown before the Rock Roman face-off, to just keep belittling his whole status, and calling the Big Goldie Sheena the loser bracket title, leaning into everything that we thought was just kind of, what I thought when I heard it originally was just toxic AF. Because why are you burying this title? What did it do to you? Type deal. But it was a means to an end, and I appreciate it now after the fact. But at the time, that SmackDown aired, and y'all talked about it last week. I was in awe. I was just like, wow. They went above and beyond. They buried 3 whole storylines in one fell swoop. Impressive. I'm impressed by the toxicity here. But even more so impressed by the pivot through this press conference. To kind of rewind a little bit, because I didn't get to shoot in the gym with y'all last week about this a little bit. I'm gonna get my shit off now. In that whole promo with The Rock and him, Big Brother and Cody to the back, and then staring off at Roman, I think the pivot point was for them to not say anything to each other and just have the stare off and listen to the reaction. And Dwayne was going to try to live and die in what they thought they were going to do, which was Rock Roman, and I'm sure Cody and Seth on different nights of Mania weekend. And then the fucking people, the Rock's people, the original People Champs, said, nah, dog, you rich now. You sleep on silk pillows and silk sheets. You don't know what hard times is. Shout out to Cody's daddy.
Hard times, baby.
Cody is hard times. Cody is every man watching wrestling And then Dwayne coming in with his Black Adam energy and just snapping his fingers and saying, nah, this is how we're doing it. So I say all that to say, because I literally went from one end to the other with Dwayne. If you notice in our chat, I'm calling him The Rock now. Not calling him Dwayne. Because he was man enough. And there was moments in that chat with E where I was calling him Terry. And I ain't talking about Terry Crews, y'all. Big T. Hulk Hogan. Of how he showed up on SmackDown. I'm like, this is so Hulk Hogan. This is beyond Hulk Hogan. Like, but for him to recognize it and then do something he said he was never going to want to do again and becoming a heel now for the greater good of the storyline, which is greater good of the business, he walked the walk. Because The Rock has always talked that talk, but now he officially walked it in my eyes. And as a man that has achieved those things that he has, and usually to the point of things we've been discussing, that hubris builds within you, that you don't got to do certain things because you, and I did my time, I paid my dues. For him to still say, nah, I want to do this, but I see this is what's better. That's mad props, because he does not have to do that. And guys like that live and die with what they believe in. So kudos to Dwayne for that.
Yeah, even as he's turned into heel on us, he's still the people's champion. He's still giving the people what they want. Like, it's a beautiful thing.
It's a beautiful thing, but I'd argue, man, he ain't the people's champ no more. He can't say that no more. I can't say it no more. At least in wrestling.
Well, no, so what I'm saying is, like, he's being the people's champion by understanding that the people want Cody, so I'm going to give him Cody.
Okay. Like, as far as the booker.
Yeah, deeper than rap type of thing. But all this talk about Cody, Rock, Roman, does Seth come off looking weak in that press conference? Because Roman buries him.
My hand, like, kind of.
Rock doesn't even acknowledge him. Cody just kind of looks at him before challenging Roman, and then steps up after Cody gets slapped. But I don't know. Like, I feel like Seth didn't come off looking the strongest. I think they repaired it on Raw a little bit, but I don't know. What do you think?
I think he had to the point of that teaser trailer that they have out now for WrestleMania. He had to make himself matter in that moment. Okay. He could have easily faded to the background because it came nothing about him once Cody came out with the "this is some bullshit" lie. He could have easily fell back. I think he had to make himself relevant to why he's there. And then again, shout out to Roman for the continuous call out of what Seth's been on these last year. We prop it up every week. Roman completely tore it apart.
Yeah.
But there's building some heat there to keep Seth's relevancy relevant in that picture, which is why I think furthermore why Roman was probably told to cut those promos on Seth to make this pivot, or at least Seth's involvement in it, if they were going to go this route. Because at the time, I really don't believe when that SmackDown came on that they thought this is what this was going to be, to do that. So I give him, again, I don't know I know the players involved writing this, but they're doing a very good job at all sharing collective ideas, and it looks like all coming to an agreement. Now, if that's true, we'll hear about it in the future, but it seems that way. It seems very collaborative. It's not just one guy's idea, as we've seen in the past, running everything and us predicting how this guy's going to predict it. Now, I think it's a lot of people in the kitchen, but instead of a bunch of chefs, it's a sous chef. It's somebody grabbing the groceries. It's somebody making sure there's a taster in the kitchen to make sure it all tastes appropriately. It's a team. It's not just a bunch of chefs.
So with that being said, let me ask you, do you think we get Cody and Seth versus Rock and Roman before Mania?
Oh, I think that's night one.
You think that's a night one? Because that's the new rumor going around, especially after that commercial came out. That night.
The way it looks.
Yeah, I mean.
And then to the point of, like, as we'll get into here momentarily, the Raw promo with him and Cody. Great promo. But to keep it in the press conference, there were some other things that happened there. Trips. His involvement in it. It was very, at first I was like, Trips sounds like he's like trying to like do like the whole DX thing, the "Are you ready?" stuff. I'm like, Trips, man, you a businessman. Like you need to stop doing that. You're Paul Levesque. That's Triple H the game. We don't need you doing that anymore. Like, as he said, and again, cleaned it up on the SmackDown after, authority figure. Be that. I don't need Triple H the game, the golden shovel. That's all.
Well, you got to remember, it's a press conference, BA. It's there to build hype.
Fair. And it's like, then they're competing with the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
As far as they're in the land of which all the media is there. And it was smart by them to do this because the media is there just twiddling their thumbs anyways. Very wise decision to go to Vegas with this, even though Mania is not.
And there's an extra, 50,000 people in Las Vegas already. So you're like, well, we can fill up an arena real quick to get a press conference going.
Now, I will ask you this. The key word in press conference is press. The press had no involvement in this whatsoever. That was very interesting to me. Now, the press was there, of course, the wrestling press, and then other press, I'm sure, that's there to cover the Super Bowl, which is the genius side of it. But they didn't ask anybody to ask.
So they probably should have called this like a kickoff, right?
And they did too. It was like press conference, WrestleMania kickoff, press conference. The word kickoff, I feel like, was in there to the Super Bowl tie-in as well.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting to me because they usually, well, maybe because it was more scripted nature stuff happening. They didn't want anybody involved that wasn't involved in it, so to speak, about what was supposed to happen there. But it was just weird. Like, you didn't get an SR, you didn't get a Sean Ross Sapp question. None of the other dignitaries and luminaries that I'm sure they're watching weren't allowed to ask. It was just different to me.
I think
smart, but different.
I think the reason for that being is because you kind of had to control the narrative completely of what was happening. And when there's questions from outsiders, like you can't control what they're gonna ask. And then
good point.
Like you have to completely depend on your talent on the fly to be able to steer this back to the story. Now, I will say, had they not had to do this pivot, it probably would have been just a press conference.
Because at first when I heard press conference, I started thinking about like, and I know you're not a big fan of this movie series, Dub, Rocky IV. When Rocky signs up to fight Drago, or even when Apollo's talking about fighting this random Russian, the style of them just sitting up at the stage, and WWE has done this in the past. It's typically what Vince does with a press conference when he was running the show. He would have that style of press conference. Your champion and challenger on each side, him in the middle, maybe the hanger-oners on the outside of them, and then they talk their shit. Some sort of kerfuffle happens, and then conference over.
Yeah.
UFC loves doing this.
That's what I thought. Like it was going to be a UFC style press conference since, they are completely in bed together. But again, they had to do this pivot. So they were like, well, it's a pep rally now, but that doesn't sound great.
No. So it was perfect, man. It was a script to that point, a scripted pep rally, I'd say. Which I think it did wonders for the hype machine that they're going to be building up around this Mania. I think this Mania is going to get the most casual eyes it's gotten in decades. When I say decades, I'm talking like WrestleMania 20, 22. That, like, love Daniel Bryan for what he did at WrestleMania 30, or what they let him do at WrestleMania 30 per the fans' request. But there was not a lot of outside care for that outside of the and the wrestling fans that knew about him. They're like, they about to let this short motherfucker win the title. I'm about to cut this song. As Vince let this happen, that was the curiosity. Then 10 years later, now you got Dwayne and his cousin that everybody know their family now wrestling with each other, against each other. I don't know. I'm gonna stay tuned and watch both of these nights of wrestling because it's a random night in April. And what the fuck else am I gonna be doing but watching this? Oh, I have Peacock for some random reason. Might as well watch it. So that's where I think that they're really winning, is they're gonna catch a lot of casual eyes because people have Peacock because of other things that they've acquired. Shout out to The Office, Friends, other things like that. People just have Peacock because, as myself, I'm an Office fan. I'll always have it just because me and my wife love to watch The Office. There's a lot of stupid shit within that, and especially as they re-release episodes. But now I have even more reason to like Peacock just the content purposes, not the actual platform.
Not the app.
Sucks.
App is ass.
Sucks. But now I can watch the Graps anytime along with that. So, and even more so to the real smart thing of this, the icing on the business cake is it's gonna make Peacock try to bid to keep something, or when this Netflix deal is up, or whatever deal next is up, because they got so many different network deals now or streaming deals. Peacock's gonna want that back.
The next deal that's up is the
really
Peacock deal for the PLEs.
Mm-hmm.
That's up in 2026, so the renegotiation is probably starting now.
And what better time to start than when you about to give them the biggest viewed thing on their platform, more than likely here in a couple months.
Yep.
So whoever's writing the business deals for them, Nobel Peace Prize if they're allowed to do that for business deals, because they're rewriting how deals should be done for future deals that other conglomerates are going to be trying to get involved in. You know, I mean, we talk about it offline all the time, Dub, with these sports networks and stuff, and how they're kind of trying to follow trends that don't really exist yet, or try to be the first ones up. But also, you know what the danger of being first is? You're going to be the first one to mess everything up too. It's always the next person that learns from that first person's mistake. So it's very interesting things happening from a business standpoint. But all in all, press conference did exactly what it was supposed to do. Cleaned up a humongous mess that they were about to create around how Dwayne was about to book himself. I'm glad things happened as they did. And shout out to the real wrestling fans to make this happen, because if y'all didn't speak up,
they were gonna run with this.
We be getting Rock and Roman and some weird promos of these guys via satellite talking to each other like it's 2011 all over again.
Yeah,
and nobody wants that.
All of that.
So good shit there.
The AW&BA Sports Business Podcast coming this fall. Wait on it.
It really needs to be a thing, because we be talking some shit. And your shit be 99% on the dot, like as far as what happens from the shit you talk. Coming soon, though. Coming soon. Put a pin in that.
Yeah, we gonna talk. But moving on from the press conference, let's talk about the title that was not mentioned at all in the press conference. Of course, I'm talking about Io Sky's women's title on SmackDown. Bayley comes out and, you know, gets to talking in her promo, talking about why she chose Io and everything like that. And then next thing you know, Dakota Kai comes out. And Dakota Kai picks up the chair. And as all of us that were Shield fans at once upon a time, when you see somebody pick up the chair, you're ready to see them turn on their friend.
Yep.
And she did not. She sided with Bayley. What were your first thoughts when you saw that Dakota was going to side with Bayley? Did you think Bayley was catching that chair, or?
No, because she needs an advocate. And this is where I have an interesting take around this. I think that if talks with Sasha work out, you get the chair shot. And you get Sasha coming back to defend her friend. But now, since we know that it was very a part of On Money, I'm very curious to hear what those figures are when we're allowed to be privy to them. Now you got to pivot. And Dakota teaming up with her to go against the Asian chapter of Damage Control, essentially, it makes sense from booking. It makes sense because of how Dakota Kai was brought into that group, and it makes sense on how Dakota Kai, I feel like, is like, she knows she's like Bayley's little sister type of deal because of all the stuff Bayley's done to kind of rehabilitate her into this main roster spot and be taken seriously. Dakota Kai had a rough go at it up until Damage Control came around. Let's keep it a buck.
Whoa, when Damage Control came along, like, Vince wanted to let her go, but they kept saying no.
To that point.
No.
That's Trips protecting his kids.
Yeah. Fingers crossed that Dakota Kai is finally cleared for action again, because she had some bangers in NXT against Io Sky. So that, hoping that, you know, we can get some tag matches out of that leading up to this, because with this being decided so early, they got a lot of runway of a story to tell until April. So I'm very interested to see where this goes. That mean, I really feel like the women need a mid-card title.
Man, my Uncle John, shout out to Uncle John, was just talking to me about how we need like a women's TV title. He wouldn't call it an intercontinental title. He called it a TV title. I'm like, why are you saying TV instead of intercontinental? He's like, well, because when you hear intercontinental, you think of the greatness of the men's intercontinental title, right? And he's like, when you think of the TV title, you think of that bullshit in WCW, that little tiny title that they used to make people wear. I'm like, you're right. It was a bullshit title, but the TV title was just here.
Till Booker T.
You can't be WCW champion. Hey, shout out to Booker T. And there were a lot of famous wrestlers that held the TV title. Like I could think of quite like Double A, Glock Anderson. He held it for a while.
Is Double A calling Cody like, you should have shot him? You see what I mean?
He slaps, you shoot, Cody. How many times I gotta tell you?
Put ones of yours in the hospital and put theirs in the morgue. All right, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Sid knows I'll come and finish the job. That's why he doesn't say shit about me in shoot interviews.
Shout out to Sid Justice.
He's an interesting interview too these days. Sure. If you can catch his interesting YouTube shorts on that stuff, but yeah, man, it's very interesting around like that whole TV title thing. So I was like, you might have some weight to that. I don't want an intercontinental belt. With that said, I don't think there's, and this may sound bad, there's not enough women there to have the work rate calling something that should deliver. So yeah, make it a TV title. There's women there. There's enough women to justify a mid-card women's title now. And do you think now, I ask you this, I hope the brand stuff goes away with the days changing here in all honesty, but let's say they don't. Do you have a women's TV title for SmackDown or a women's TV title for Raw? Or do you just make it it's its own thing and anybody can compete for it and it depends on the random nature in which it lands on shows?
I would say the same with the women's tag titles. Like you keep it afloating. Keep it afloating between the two brands. And once in a blue moon, somebody at NXT tries a challenge for it. Whenever you want to pop a rating down there or something. Honestly, I would call it a women's intercontinental title, truthfully.
Really?
And the first match I would have it decided at would be a ladder match.
Yeah, shout out to the lineage.
Set the tone.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, I think you got enough workers. I think just a lot of them are in mishmash tag teams. Yep. You know, you can break some of those up and you can, have some people going after that mid-card title. And then that way you have a tag division that looks like a tag division and you're like, all right, these 5 teams are vying over this belt, not this team has the belt, and then we make up 4 new teams. every couple of months. And I think
you bring up a good point with the mismatch tags in the women's side of the table. I think they're just trying to restore some confidence and some normalcy to that title, which is why you got so many people that's still together and just like, what's the point? Because this ain't doing nothing for them individually. Mm-hmm. So I think they have to restore from all the damage Vince has done to the women's tag team championships. He just did not care. And once you get that right, to have some sort of lineage where you can forget about all that stuff, I think that's when you get some sort of mid-card women's title. They're gonna crawl these things out. They're not about to rush them. There's no reason to. Back when Vince was at the helm and it was Trips and Shawn was helping Trips, it was like I gotta prove to this old man that I know what I'm doing type of vibe. Mm-hmm. So there was a lot more urgency around getting stuff over or on TV or whatever. But now we here. So shout out to E-Ray. We got pizza. We don't need more pizza. Like, we're good. We don't need it. So I think that's what we're getting with in regards to that. But I don't know, man. It leaves a lot. It leaves some questions there for sure. But I think it's something that they have in the back of their mind, but we ain't there yet.
Agreed.
We get some more calls from NXT to justify some women moving up.
Mellow.
No, I said women.
Oh, women. Okay.
Talking about the men's title or the men's guys. Those dudes will be up after Mania, after Stand and Deliver. Let's be real.
Well, we just had some NXT call-ups on the women's side with Tiffany, and who else did they?
She's officially up now.
Yeah, she's on SmackDown. Oh yeah.
That's interesting.
I think she qualified for the Chamber. Oh no, she has a Chamber qualifying match. Yeah, no, the Rocket is strapped.
They'll probably let her in.
The Rocket is strapped. She's to the moon.
Yeah, it's the whole like Barbie girl gimmick. They love that, and she can wrestle. She can put together matches. That's hard to come by. Good gimmick and a good wrestler. This sounds so terrible, but it's true. Most NXT women have one or the other. There's not both out the gate. And it's usually gimmick that suffers in NXT. And then they can kind of hang on the skill side. But all that stuff takes time to build.
I agree. I agree fully. Anything else you want to talk about from the SmackDown world? We got to keep it moving as we got the homie Nasif coming up later.
Sure. That was it. And like I said, the stuff where Trips kind of cleaned up the press conference bitch out that got done when The Rock
when he was talking spicy,
cussed him out. Yeah, I thought we was back in '98 SummerSlam for a second, man. I'm like, they about to get on the ladder? They about to fight for the IC belt again or something? Like, what's happening here? Yeah, what do you think about Dwayne leading into the heelness so much he's cussing on live TV now to the point where they got to bleep about? So that's interesting to me.
I've always thought in the past damn near decade now, I think The Rock cusses a little too much. And to the point where
it doesn't sound genuine.
Yeah, it doesn't sound genuine or natural. All right, we get it.
Yeah.
You couldn't cuss for a long time. I totally understand that. I get it. This shit has to be frustrating, right? But at this point, we know you're a real human being. We get it. Well, we don't really know because you went from being a normal size 6'5" person to the person you are now. Looks like they ate the person you used to be.
The juggernaut.
Yeah.
Literally.
So it's felt so forced. I'm like, come on, man. Come on, bro.
Right, this ain't you.
Yeah, this ain't you. You don't, no one cusses this much. No one.
Mm-mm.
DMX didn't cuss this much.
Oh man, I was just watching. My brother sent me this funny ass reel about, speaking of DMX, RIP. His character in Belly, Tommy Buns, was one of the most toxic movie characters in movie history. And I was like, really? And he did things I never knew he got head from an underage girl. That girl in the car was 15. Never put that together in all my years of watching Belly.
That was one of the first things I noticed, watching that movie. I'm like, wait, we just gonna let this rock?
Teenager?
Hang on.
I've watched Belly front to back more times than I can remember. I know that movie by heart, damn near. And I never pieced that together. I just thought it was just some young chick. I ain't oh, that's a teenager? Jesus, DMX. What? And then him pulling up in front of Nas' house at 3 a.m, yelling come on, nigga, I'm gonna pull up. I'm about to start honking the fucking horn. In this man's name, this is your friend, bruh. You at his house at 3 a.m. What the fuck is wrong? So, to DMX's point, I had to bring that up because it shocked me. I never put those things together. I'm like, yeah, I knew he was toxic just in general, but I never put together how toxic. Yeah, we would have had to work if he would pull up to my house like that. We ain't cool no more, bruh. I got kids. Now I got to deal with my wife because you want to pull up acting like a maniac at 3 o'clock in the morning because you think people after you. Anyways, to that point,
your kid's not going back to sleep if that happens. I
know. This is time to start the next day if that happens, man. Give up. You're just about to have a bad day. You gotta be cool with it. Time to suck it up. So SmackDown, with Trips trying to restore some order and kind of trying to let people know. Can you see some sort of face off? And they probably can't because Trips can't do nothing, I'm sure, with that chest in his heart.
Yeah, Trips can't work no more. He got the bionic man heart.
Yeah, he can't. They can't risk that. But could you see something where to give Rock more heel energy? And this is good as it comes. This just came to me. We get some sort of push of Triple H to the ground, something he knows he can handle. But everybody in the crowd gonna be like, "Hey man, that man just had a heart attack a couple years ago. Chill on Trips."
Oh, absolutely.
We get some stuff like that.
Absolutely.
I was thinking the same thing.
I think the lean in of this heel Rock is not going to be the Hollywood Rock people think it's going to be. It's going to be board member Rock.
Explain further on that.
So, as people know, he is a member of the board now. And leaving the press conference, he told Triple H, fix this shit or we will. Now, we being Roman, who has the biggest stroke in the company, as far as a wrestler in ring, and Rock having the biggest stroke on the board. And I want to say pause to all of that. But yeah, Rock being somebody who like is on the board and probably like has control to a degree, because like the guys who are on the board who aren't wrestling people are gonna defer to Rock, simply because he's a wrestler, and two, because of his stature, you know. And as we heard in the interviews with Mike Vrabel, people were just afraid of him, so they deferred to him. That's why he didn't get a job. Whole nother thing. But the same thing happens in corporate America too. Sometimes BA be walking in these boardrooms and niggas just agree with him. Now, luckily, because BA is so good at his job, everybody makes money. But that's the same thing that's going to happen here, as he's going to be like, I have control of this board. Those who, you know, rock with me, they rock with me. The rest of them are just too afraid of me. And you're gonna see this pushback, and he's gonna get in Triple H's face, and then, you know, Triple H is gonna, I mean, at this point, the whole roster are Tripp's kids, but especially the other two guys on the opposite side of Roman and Rock.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Seth,
though.
who like
very good,
who was
tool
Triple H's like prize pupil, and Cody, who has told people for decades that Triple H was his favorite wrestler, flat out. And the guy whose attention he was always trying to get when he was smashing thrones in AEW and doing all this stuff, the reason he puts on the suits, he was trying to get Tripp's attention. So like that's the dynamic you're gonna see here of Bloodline Boardroom versus Trips and the talent. Like the boardroom trying to assert their will, and Triple H being like, no, I know what's best for business and what's best for me and my kids. That's the dynamic you're gonna see. So that face-off is gonna happen, and then truthfully, like if I'm Seth, like I step right in the middle of that face-off, like nah, me and him, we had our battles, but nah, fam, you gotta look at me. And I think
it's more justification of Seth being there too.
Yeah, but I think that's closer to how you get us to the Seth and Cody versus Rock and Roman. Either it happens at the Chamber or it happens night one of Mania. Let me also ask you this question to kind of lead us into Monday Night Raw. If Seth and Cody go against Rock and Roman night one of Mania, does Seth still have that title?
Guys, it's E-Ray here, your friendly neighborhood bad guy. And when I'm not booking the territory or bringing the motherfucking ruckus, you can catch me on my show, Binge Flicks and Chill, where I'll bring my personal outrageous perspective to some of the latest and greatest in television and movies today. You'll laugh, you'll cry, and you'll probably never look at your favorite shows or movies the same again. But tune in and let the binge begin.
That's a very good question, Dub. I don't think he can.
Okay.
Unless he's defending it on night two as well.
I'm gonna pitch something to you. First, I want to start with a question: is Hater Drew the best version of Drew?
1,000%. I've never cared about Drew McIntyre so much in his whole runs, all of his runs, and right now he's finally becoming a human, if that makes sense.
Yes.
He's always been this like big Scottish freak with this sword that he carries around for no god.
The Scottish
it doesn't
Psycho,
use for
the
anybody.
Scottish Terminator, all of that stuff, which he lives up to the billing, because when Drew McIntyre's mad, I wouldn't want to be in the same state as him. And when he's out there working, you're like, Jesus Christ, this guy, how did they ever fire this guy? And you remember he was playing air guitar at some point.
Wow, with Jinder Mahal.
Exactly.
And Heath Slater. Yeah, it's like, with that said, Drew and I wish Punk was here, because I'm sure they've had some great build up to if Seth and Cody or CM Punk would do their thing, we would be getting a Drew versus Punk match in the Chamber at the Chamber pay-per-view. It'd be a great match for Punk to get more reps that he needs just to get used to these young guys that actually know how to work and that he's working with. And the fact that Drew would have been with in the ring with one of the best mics in the business, I'm sure he would have learned a thing or two more than what he's already shown he's learned.
Absolutely. So let me book something out for you, and just a heads up, just completely deletes another one of our topics here, but there's another rumor going around, and I love these rumors because I'm like, ooh, that would be cool, and I start fancy booking shit in my head that the winner of the Chamber is gonna challenge Seth same night. So
I know what Seth is turning into the new Rey Mysterio.
So hear me out here. So
peace.
Night starts, men's chamber. Drew wins the chamber. Drew and Seth to close the show. Rock interferes, costs Seth his title.
That's wild. I wasn't gonna say that. I had a whole other scenario in my mind.
Thus fueling the fire of Seth and Cody versus Rock and Roman night 1. And then from there, Drew gets the title at the chamber, gets to walk in as champion, and he's like, oh, well, you know, I don't have any challenges. Clearly Seth is dealing with The Rock. No one's ready for me. I'm just gonna hold this title up. And then you get Sammy, who's looking for his way in, and Drew's like, you didn't make it into the chamber. You know, you lost these matches. No, absolutely not. And then, you know, I don't know how you book it. I will book it as Sammy has to beat Drew to get his title match, and then he does it at a Raw or something, and then you get Sammy and Drew at Mania for the title. And then Sammy's winning that title.
I mean, you forgot a whole player, Dub, that I'm surprised I didn't hear you say, man.
Okay.
From one of your favorite theme song stables in wrestling today. Mr. Senior in the Bank. Money in the Bank, man. Damian Priest. If any night to cash in, it's that night.
So I was thinking that too, but all right, so here's the issue with Damian cashing in. Damian cashes in. They have not built enough stories for him to go into Mania with against someone, because him and Finn are boys again. Like, he had the tension with Drew going into like Survivor Series, but that has also kind of dissipated a little bit. Sammy and Drew, there's something real there. And also, Damian still has till June to cash that thing in too.
Right.
So
more time for shenanigans.
Yeah, and the summer is where they do experimental champions and things like that. So like, if I were them, I would have him hold it until the very last second. Till whatever the last event is in May, and then boom, and at that point everybody knows it's coming, and you're like, oh shit, and you book a super show where both titles are there, so you're like, I don't know what he's gonna do, and then I would say he cashes in on Sammy, truthfully, but yeah, I mean, of course,
easier cash in for sure from that perspective.
But yeah, I'm glad you brought up Damian Priest, because that Judgment Day theme song, what a song.
Max.
What a song.
So I mean, as far as Raw, I mean, other things happen. I know we're getting like a tease of like a Shinsuke, and
if what I predicted doesn't happen, I think we get Sammy and Shinsuke at Mania. Which, again, not mad.
I mean, it's a strong. I had to think about that. It's a stronger possibility for Sammy and Drew at Mania, but if somehow they lean into Drew more, it's tough, bro. And this is the beauty of booking now, is everything's so up for grabs and unpredictable. It's not because Vince is so far out of it, and that was a lot of the problem with. If anybody were to gripe about WWE style, is it's predictable to the man booking it, and it's more based off the gimmick than the actual grabs, which is fine. So you like what you like, but they're doing a hell of a job of blurring those lines too. around all that kind of stuff. So I don't know. It would make sense for Shinsuke and Sammy to have that feud, but I hope not. I'd rather see Sammy and Drew, in all honesty, see Shinsuke with somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, what if we just rehash everything out? Sammy wins that belt from Drew at Mania, gets a surprise hug from KO, and then you know what happens after that?
Stunner.
Yep. And then KO just goes all KO, pop up power bombs, and then holds up that belt.
Didn't we already get a Sammy and KO feud like 2 years ago?
Sammy and KO are like Batman and Joker. They're gonna feud forever.
I see what you're saying.
But I mean, I say that because like Triple H is just kind of, he's saying like, "Oh, this worked in NXT. Let's just do it again." A lot, which again I don't have a problem with. Love the black and gold. Think it's one of the greatest eras of wrestling. But I just think that would be something really, really cool for people to kind of sink their teeth into. Let me think. Anything else from Raw that's worth mentioning? Nah, not really. No. You wasn't feeling the Nia Jax tears.
That's what I was thinking of women's promos. I was like, nah, that if anything turned me off. Like nope, not gonna give that bait. But she shouldn't be crying on TV, and I'll say that it's very hard to buy that from that superstar.
Hey, cry on command. Maybe she know that her cousin is around. Maybe she's trying to get some Hollywood roles too.
Yeah. For $10 in the Mule Productions or whatever the fuck.
Get in some Tyler Perry movies. Just saying.
Tyler Perry would be hilarious, man. But no, I don't think there was a lot more that happened on Raw worth talking about. Do you imagine
Madea versus Nia Jax?
That sounds like something in the 2K23 universe, the creative mode. I'm sure it probably exists. I'm sure there's a Madea that exists out there in creative mode land.
Oh man, Tubi, Tyler Perry, give me a call. I'll write it. I'll write it up. I'll figure it out.
That's wild, but nothing else from Raw, which leads us into the greatest wrestling show on television. Still.
And what would that be?
I found out. That'd be NXT.
NXT. Started off with Robert Stone's kids yet again, BA.
Loved it.
When did these kids first get on TV? I feel like I missed that because when they did the training montage, everybody knew who they were but me.
It was the segment where it was, I call it Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, when Von Wagner shows up at their house with those cosmic brownies. That's the first time I ever saw him. I didn't know Mr. Stone had like kids and they were like entertaining. Like, it works.
I mean, Stone's entertaining. Maybe it's genetic. So we start off with, them Stone and Von Wagner, Franks and Baines. Pulling off the sneak attack on Noam Dar and Main Man Mensa. My apologies. And we get that match going. Are you invested in this feud at all? Because I'm not.
Nah, I can't lie to myself. It's there's no spice there. It's bland food.
Okay.
Needs something.
Like I'm not mad at what they're doing with Robert Stone and Von Wagner. It's more of a comedy angle, but I don't know. It just I get what they were trying to do.
If we're gonna get these guys over, that's the only way to do it. That's the only reaction Von Wagner's ever got on me is pure laughter.
True.
It's so hard to take serious in the wish that they want us to take it.
But then sometimes the laughter they get is not the laughter they're looking for.
Yep.
We just be laughing at that nigga when he be trying to read words.
Yep. Nope. And I think they know that the joke is on him, and even him maybe even. Which, but still, like, doesn't work for me, brother.
Doesn't work for me, brother.
Yep. And then as far as other thing that happened on NXT, me just watching it can recall. The whole Luca Constantino attorney at law.
Joining the family, baby.
Join the family. I mean, it works.
Yeah, it works great.
I I don't know. It's just like with the family, so to speak. Do you think like Stax gets upset or something, or
No? I've always thought they needed more people, like a family of two. Like, I don't know, like, and I know they want to like avoid huge stables in NXT because that roster's only but so big, but.
And I agree with them.
I mean, but if you're gonna call them the family, like OTM shouldn't be a bigger stable. And like, if you're gonna like put this whole like, hey, they're this crime family running things in Orlando, I guess they need more people. And Luca Constantino, he works because he's a lawyer who clearly isn't a good lawyer because he has to wrestle in his spare time. That being said, he can actually go in the ring a little bit. He's pretty good. It's pretty good. You should watch Level Up.
No. I'll save the clip notes from your watching and go from there, sir. Was that like Saturday at 8 a.m. or some shit?
No, Fridays at 10.
Oh,
I watch it Saturday mornings because I watch it as I make breakfast.
Okay, that tracks. I usually talk about it Saturday morning. I just assume that's when we're blessed with that greatness.
Everybody thinks, Level Up comes on when Dub watches it. I'm watching it live right there.
Hey, man, to each their own. I'm not here to judge.
Oh, man.
But the family does need to be bigger. This will give them more credibility as, quote, the family.
I think they need a heavy.
Okay. What are you going to call it, Vic Vito? Is he still alive? If he is, watch out, because I have a stream of, or rumored, or no, it's kind of based in fact. Anytime I bring these people up, they just vanish. So hope you're well, Big Vito.
Shout out to Big Vito, man.
Stay in the house. Don't leave the house the next 24 hours. So then from there, as far as things to talk about, we get the whole Ilya and Melo still taking shots at Ilya. I don't know why. I mean, I know why,
you
but
talk about Jaida Parker?
Oh, we can get into it. I just. Oh man, I was just on the agenda. I was just like, oh,
right. You're looking at agendas. Oh, I'm watching NXT back in my head, and that's all I seem to remember. She has the it factor, right?
It factor as far as she knows how to be a performer.
Like, I feel like she knows who her character is and is like displaying
she's
that.
buying into her character. Because it was not what we saw originally presented from her when the first time we saw her. It works too. She got that mean light-skinned girl energy. Some dudes are intoxicated by that kind of stuff and love more of that kind of toxic behavior. As Dub raises hands.
Yes.
So yeah, WWE got a whole problem on their hands they don't even know about yet. Because I don't know how you keep that a family product with that young lady on television. They're gonna have to go lean into that TV 14 that they were pushing for allegedly a couple months ago.
So we got Jaida Parker, we got Lash Legend, we got Jakara Jackson, Sol Ruka, Kiana James, Kaylani. BA, I'm gonna need you to launch an investigation in the Shawn Michaels search history.
I'm sure he wants to keep his home happy. I will not do that to HBK. I have too much respect for that man.
All right, so you're not. So let's figure this out though. Is HBK the last person alive with the King Magazine subscription?
No, that'd be Shane McMahon. Well, Sean's older than Shane, so yeah, Sean, and then it's Shane McMahon.
Sean and Shane?
I'm sure. Yeah, that's accurate.
That checks out. That checks out. That was all I wanted on Jaida Parker. I just wanted to just throw that out there. That star.
I get it, man.
The Jaida Parker agenda is in full effect on Let Me Book the Territory. But that being said, more women's wrestling. Don't worry, we'll get back to Melo and Ilya.
Oh yeah, I ain't worried.
Shotzi.
Yeah, what was that about?
Failing up?
It's failing up from NXT when you were on SmackDown?
Apparently,
failing up?
Hold on. Don't get our buddy Dragon Lee. Went up to SmackDown, lost 3 matches, and then won North American title.
True. Anything is possible.
Exactly. So apparently Shotzi and Lyra Valkyria were going back and forth on social media. Didn't know that at all. So Shotzi just decided to pull up. I appreciate that energy. You know, keep that same energy at all times and say, yo, what's good? What's really good? So,
oh wow.
Apparently they have a title match next week, and Shotzi has an Elimination Chamber qualifier next week.
Interesting.
So she's failing up. They failing up, got their new queen. Because as we all know, the king of failing up is our guy Dragon Lee.
1,000%. Nobody loses better than him.
Nobody.
I've never seen somebody get so much for so little. Yeah, you gotta respect that kind of hustle. That's going against the grain hustle. Not easy to do.
Well, did I just lose 5 matches? Yeah. Nick Aldis, I need a title match next week. Oh, you got it, buddy.
My shoulder pads and this jacket say, you got it, pal. Yeah, man. It's quite wild when you look at it like that.
And with that, it looks like Tatum is kind of turning the corner. Not Tatum. I can't. All of these women starting to look the same to me.
Oh, really?
Lyra is starting to turn the corner on Tatum. Was cheering her on with her match with Lola Vice. Helped her backstage. Literally carried her like a Disney princess. It was quite strange. What are you thinking about that? Are you invested? Are we doing another odd couple pairing? Is Lyra gonna turn heel and have a minion?
Nah, unless Shotzi gonna be down there for a while or something. There's no reason to make her heel. It just doesn't work yet. She's too babyface. They gotta master her being a babyface first before they send her to the heel route.
No, I was talking about Lyra.
Lyra Valkyria.
Lyra gonna?
Yeah, Lyra Valkyria.
Yeah,
that's what I was talking about.
I thought you were talking about Shotzi for a second. Yeah.
No. I just more said that if Shotzi sticks around, Lyra would lean into this. But you know what? As I think about it, she's still the champion though, right? Lyra is, correct? Never mind. That theory doesn't work. She has to stay good. She has to stay good until she loses the belt. What kind of you've never seen? I'm sure it's happened in the past, but it's rare that you see gimmick changes while belt is in possession. Usually the belt leaving is a reason for the catalyst to change. People usually don't change unless it's for the worse, because heel shit, toxicity is real. Right. Especially if you got that hubris of a title over your shoulders. So, but you don't usually see it conducted like that. Usually the turn happens when things are taken away from you that you used to cover. So that's why I'm saying not yet, but she needs it, just like Roxanne needed it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that is a very interesting point. I didn't think about how people don't become heel as they have the title, which is, I feel like, the time to become evil and be an asshole to keep your title.
Yeah, it's a matter of perspective as far as that goes. I know everybody seeks that path to least resistance, but
it'll be just hire me. I can open up a whole new world of face champions turning heel while they have the belt. Ooh, I can write some stories.
It's not easy.
I can write some
not
stories.
Easy to do it all.
So, Lyra Valkyria, Tatum Paxley. What do you think is going to happen since it's not going to be a heel turn? I'm interested.
Because Tatum Paxley is definitely a heel.
Is she?
No, she doesn't wear. She's about as pasty as this white piece of paper in front of me. And that's no offense to pasty white women. I was going to say, wait,
pasty people
usually
are
pasty
heel?
White women. It's like when they say it's like when they tell you, and I've heard this story from people that work in the news, like local news, but news nonetheless. They tell you that you need to keep if you're male, your facial hair shaved at all times. Because if you come on TV with a beard, it's gonna make it as if you're seeming dishonest, or that you aren't necessarily like doing what you're gonna create an image in which that you're not trying to convey because of that beard. I could see the same thing happening in regards to how Tatum Paxley is because she's like goth looking. It's like how they when fucking Booker T would go crazy over Elbow Fire and her homie.
Shit. It's kept her off TV.
I can't think of her name either. That's what I said. Thank yes, Isla Dawn.
Bluetooth compatible. Isla Dawn. Shout out to E-Ray.
The golf, the weirdness. So I get the same vibe from Tatum Paxley with that said. But the girl also doesn't have a character, so there's that part too.
I mean, she's swim fan.
That's you're making my argument.
That's a whole
to the
character.
point of swim fan. Exactly, but to the point of swim fan, you don't even know swim fan until the end. So who the fuck is Tatum Paxley? Okay. I see her. I can see you.
But okay, so we've kind of stumbled onto something here. The pigmentation of white folk, like determining their character. So
maybe that's why I got so mad at John Cena when I saw him on TV last year. He was about pasty as some chalk, man. I was just like, what the fuck? You know Vince ain't back there. He'd be ripping them to shreds. Like,
so wait,
no tan power?
But then let me ask you this question. So pasty white equals heel, right?
Mm-hmm.
Does like overly tan equal heel as well? Because brown is basically orange now.
Essentially, the wild dogs, I think they're called, or
wolf
road
dogs.
Wolf dogs. That's what it is, which is ridiculous. He's orange as shit. He looks like a tangerine to that point. So I guess maybe tanning beds do make you evil. So maybe Tatum Paxley's a good person.
You guys heard it here first, guys. Not only do tanning beds give you cancer, they make you evil.
Because cancer's evil.
Oh, there it is. There it is.
It goes hand in hand.
BA discovered something.
It goes hand in hand, like peanut butter and jelly, cancer and evil. Who says, man, I'm happy this cancer stage 4. This is amazing. Like, unless you're just a dark individual. Hey. It's interesting indeed.
So
the
opposite spectrums, pale or orange as a white person, that means you're evil. If you're anywhere in the middle, if you can like manage your tan, then you're okay. You're right, because Mandy Rose, when she was damn near blackfishing people, she was damn near orange. She was the most healed she had ever been.
True.
When she was kissing Otis, she was just a nice golden goddess, as she called herself. See, BA done stumbled upon something.
It's the white pigmentation, like you said. They're just as bad as us when it comes to that stuff, because we love to call each other out per our skin tones and create narratives around certain skin tones. So hey, we can do it to them too.
You're right.
Black History Month still, y'all. So with that said, the Ilya and Mello weirdness, man. Let's get into that. I wasn't here, and y'all had a great dialogue around Dragon Ball Z basically being WWE characters. That was fun. But to the point of, I guess, Vegeta in this case, aka Mello, what is the deal with him even caring about the NXT titles? I know he's supposed to, but you'll have to patch this together for me. He's not saying that he turned on Trick because Trick wasn't going to be able to handle getting the NXT title back, right? This has nothing to do with that. He just wasn't getting the job done.
No, it was a matter of, I turned on Trick because Trick forgot his place. His place is my hype man as I chase the NXT title because it's mine, because I'm him. It's like...
Oh, we went straight ego.
Yeah, it's narcissism turned up to the millionth degree.
Yeah, narcissism 101.
Yeah.
Teaching intro class.
Yeah.
I mean...
And again, that's why he attacked Trick Williams in the back when Trick went out. Like... Because he was doing the wrong thing for in his mind, the right reason. To get Trick back to being just my hype man. To get him to stop chasing this fucking dream.
Nah, man. They made that theme song. It's over. They whooped that Trick. Has his own zip code now, basically.
And that's why he kept looking at Trick like, I don't really have to just put this nigga down.
Yeah, I'm going to have to put him on a t-shirt too. That's sad.
Yeah, and that's what it is.
Like, airbrush joints.
It's not that Melo's like... obsessed with the NXT title. It's that Melo's obsessed with himself And that title is like part of the validation of I'm him. Because he had the same type of pursuit of the North American for a while. When he lost it the first time, he was like, I got to get back to it. It's mine. I need it back. And then he got it back and then went on a crazy run with it. And after he lost it, he was like, you know what? I want that other one. Like, that's going to be the crux of his character throughout his entire WWE run, is like the validation seeking. And it's not even validation. It's more of, I deserve this because I am the best. I am him. And like, it's gonna be more of, I validate this title, so it should just be over here at all times type of thing.
Yeah, his toxicity, because it's been at bay for so long, is about to get a heavy dosage each day, basically.
That being said, I don't think he's gonna get
sense.
another shot at that title either.
Nah, I don't think so either. That's why I had such questions about it. I was just like, why does he care about this?
Actually, I take that back.
Like, dog, he didn't help this belt like 3 times.
He's only held it once.
I thought he lost it and got it back.
He lost it to Ilya, and Ilya been running with it. I take that back.
I'm thinking of Brian.
Yeah, Melo might get another shot at that title at Roadblock, but I would argue that's when Trick's music hits, and then Ilya, hits that Torpedo Moscow, and then his American History X and retains, and then Trick comes out there, and you're like, all right, we start building to Stand and Deliver. When Trick sends Melo to that, main roster in the sky.
Pretty Daily just said, "What's up?" That's it.
But yeah, like, and Melo Joe Gacy put on a banger of a match.
Not a bad match until Dijak showed up. Then it got wild. Then it turned to Silence of the Lambs. So yeah, man. That's why I was, like I said, that's why I was like, Melo's on some weird stuff, but it's kind of like he has to be. And I get it. He's like tweening heavy right now as far as booking, not character anymore, and where he needs to be at a win. My question is, though, as we talk about Melo, does he bring this same heel energy to the main roster when he arrives? Or is he babyface cocky, I'm him, Melo?
Ooh.
I can give you my take early from just what I've seen so far.
Go ahead.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. I think he's going to be booked as a babyface.
I do too.
And this is pre-Trick turn though, so I don't know.
I do too, and I think it's a mistake. I think he might be booked as a tweener. Because like
that'll confuse everybody.
Well, I think tweener like coming in, because like when he's coming in fresh off of this feud. So you're still gonna have fans in the audience who are like, "Hey, fuck you," but like,
because we watching NXT,
right? Like, so he's gonna come off. Also, not booked as a tweener, but he's gonna come off as a tweener because he's still gonna be arrogant, Melo, but he's gonna be booked as a babyface to build up into a babyface type role. I think it's a mistake because heel Melo is what's best business at all times. I don't know how you book him as a heel. Maybe have him come in and beat up Rey Mysterio
because everybody does.
Yeah, and then
right, volunteer.
And against Rey, he can show off his strength as well because they're the same height. That wasn't a short joke; it was just a fact.
True.
But yeah, like I could see them, like he comes in and he gets boos and cheers. Because some people know, some people don't, but then they book him as a babyface. Because yeah, like that call up's happening right after Trick hits him with that Trick knee. 1, 2, 3. That.
Do you think him and Braun Breaker have like their first feud like against each other, or you gotta get a veteran involved?
Nah, I don't think they'll be on the same show for one. I think that's a bag you can go back to, so you keep them separate from each other for as long as you can.
I feel you.
The same way, like when Jade Cargill finally comes up, I would argue you don't put her on the same show as Bianca,
right?
Because that's money down the line, so you don't want it. You don't want people asking for it too soon.
Exactly, and again, I give Dwayne a lot of shit, but The way he came about while all of a sudden wanting to fight Roman Reigns after the seeds had been planted for years. Because he knew it was time to pull that card. I had to wait till the perfect moment to do it. So I get that.
Yep. That's my thought there. Let me think. Anything else from NXT you want to talk about? The Wolf Dogs winning them tag titles?
Setting up for the Wolf Dogs to break up when they have to drop them back to the family.
Yep.
I don't see any other tag team that could drop them to outside of the Gallus boys, and I don't think Gallus is winning anything for that new NXT outfit opens up overseas.
Yeah, they're busy fighting off what's his name, Ridge Holland.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on the big black nigga?
Yeah, they got problems all over the place, man. That's just I couldn't imagine. That's a lot of different characters to have to deal with a lot of time. No wonder people get beat up in that parking lot so much. Too many fucking characters. But as far as the rest of NXT, nothing sticks out to me. You had the Wolf Dog match at the end. So some interesting things happening with the ladies that were on this episode. That's all I can really say and will say about that. But fun episode. I literally wrapped it up as we started up. So I had fun with it. It looked fun if I was actually listening to the sound. The caption said so.
It was a good episode.
Good times.
Nothing real game changing happened outside of the tag titles changing hand. I do think that's going to be kind of the catalyst to bring in Luca Constantino or Constantino, however the fuck you say it, into the family. He's going to negotiate their rematch. I can see that happening. And then after that happens, I think Braun's gone. I wouldn't be shocked if they lose those titles at Roadblock and Braun's gone till Monday after Mania or the SmackDown Mirror, where the fuck ever. I think that's all we got on the weeklies.
Yeah, man. Outside of that, we got a special segment coming up after this.
Shout out to the homie Nasif coming in.
Yeah. Shout out to Nasif in regards to just the knowledge he's about to provide us in this little segment we put together. We have been avoiding event stuff for a long time, as I'm sure y'all could imagine why. So we wanted to give y'all a little different take on it is all. But that's coming up next. But before we get there, this has been another episode of Let Me Book the Territory. Dub.
Should I tell the people?
I was going to ask you. Yeah, what people can find you, all that fun stuff.
Little old
Let
me.
them know before we get into
little old me.
Yeah, little old you. Let them know before we get into the real stuff, the fun stuff. I guess not fun stuff, but the interesting
stuff. Yes. For guys who are interested in legal stuff, stay tuned.
Nerd stuff.
Yeah, nerd stuff. Speaking of nerd stuff, BA and Doe's Sports Business Podcast coming real soon. Let me tell you, brother.
It should, man. It should. It's a lot of happening in sports every day.
Every day. If you guys are looking for me on these socials, it's ADUB1220 on everything. Hit the follow button, and I promise I will fuck up your algorithm with filth and wrestling. Not necessarily in that order. Every Tuesday, new episodes of Let Me Book, but Embrace the Turn Up with me and the homie John. Talking everything crazy. This last Tuesday, we did a Super Bowl recap. I explained to the whole world why Patrick Mahomes is Jordan and Jordan is Patrick Mahomes. A lot of other stuff. Let me think what else. Go to letmebookpod.com. Get you some merch. Only Slam shirts. Get t-shirts with our faces on them. We got coasters.
Yeah.
We got stickers. We got hoodies. We got muscle shirts. We got it all. We got it all for you, and you can find everything from the pod there, from BA and the Wise Man there. You can find little bios on us, all of that shit. Everything from this pod is on that website. Go there, and don't forget, when they start talking real spicy on the Twitter account, it is always BA. It is never me.
Ain't me.
Always BA.
I don't even know what's happening on Twitter for our account anymore. My brain literally can't handle that stuff because it's just like, can't do it. I got too much going on. So that said, thank you, Dub. And with that said, y'all can find me, y'all know when I show up here, usually Wednesdays. Sometimes I don't. Lately, just very busy. But outside of that, every other Wednesday for the BA and the Wise Man show, we just dropped an episode this past Wednesday, covering one of the most interesting pay-per-views, I'd say. Little known in your house, called St. Valentine's Day Massacre. A lot of things that tie into current events and current things happening in wrestling now. And I educate, as I always do, the wise man on some things happening at the time for somebody that was outside. Like, for example, Dub, did you know that The Rock wore that Adidas outfit that he fought
because he was growing man boobs because he was on testosterone? Yep.
Boom, 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 boom. Said that in that episode. Wise man was like, wow, makes a lot of sense now. I never understood that. I'm like, yeah, because why the hell would you think The Rock would want to wear that? Looks fucking stupid. But in his mind, I was like, yeah, he's corporate Rock. He's going to wear some random shit. But he had to wrestle, man. He couldn't let his spot get taken to that point. So we get into all that kind of stuff there. And then, yeah, man, outside of that, you already know when I choose to cut on social media, it's usually the IG. Spouting our stories, letting y'all know, sharing funny shit I see on there, funny ass reels in the wrestling world. So yeah, man, keep following us. Like Dub said, letmebookpod.com. That's where you can find all of our stuff at, all of our merch. I need to re-up on our merch. We got some dope stuff out there. I want for myself. Best believe I'm about to get some. I need some coasters for the compound. I'm about to have all sorts of random coasters around this house. My kids will probably be throwing them at each other, so I hope they're soft. Because if they mess up my TV for WrestleMania, you might see a grown man cry.
I think our coasters are cork coasters. So
thank God. All right. Well, they can still break
they can still break a TV.
They won't be allowed to play them. They'll sit in my office. Only come out when the grown-ups are around. But yeah, that's where you can find me, BA. And with that said, this has been another episode of Let Me Book the Territory.
Apologies.
Please stand by.
To Nick Aldis, as always.
Yes, apologies to our 90s/2000s stand-up comedian in his Vince McMahon suits. And speaking of, to the Vince McMahon lawsuit nonsense. Yeah.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? We have something very special for you on the Let Me Book the Territory podcast. We've been ducking and dodging it for the past few weeks here. Everything that's going on with Vince. We brought on a special guest to help us out here. Our guy, Matt Nasif, lawyer extraordinaire, super lawyer, litigator of all litigators.
Not quite, but
He protected me.
I'm a wrestling fan.
There we
He
go.
protects me. He's when I'm hanging on the east coast of the country, this is who I hit up if I'm ever in any serious trouble. Which y'all can too. The homie Nasif, I call him. Matt, as you guys know him, I know him as Nasif. I can't call him anything.
There we go.
But Nasif, welcome, sir, to the territory, the madness, sir. How you doing this evening?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
Just three guys talking about wrestling and terrible, potentially criminal acts on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
We did a hell of a day to do this, right?
Yeah, we sure did. Didn't even put two and two together. There definitely equals 4. Wow. Yeah, so like Dub said, man, we've been avoiding this thing like the plague. Very low-hanging fruit of joke and comedy that we could pull from this, like most podcasts in this arena have. But I felt it would have been irresponsible by us to not dig into our resources. And myself, BADBIC, being the guy that has all the resources, I figured I'd have to dig into my bag and grab one of the homies that watches us from afar, supports us, follows us on IG. I was like, this is the first guy I'm gonna hit up because he's aware. He messes with the brand. So I know you're not a humongous diehard like me and A-Dub are, but you've dabbled in the graps and sports entertainment in your past as far as being a wrestling fan, right, Nathan?
Oh yeah, I watched religiously from early 90s through early 2000s.
Oh yeah. Just like us all. You grew up with us in that light, and then as we all do, we put it away, come back sometimes, maybe watch from afar, or even just go balls deep like I did when I came back into it a few years ago. So hey, it all varies. With that being said,
Don't worry, we're gonna reel you all the way back in pretty soon. Don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry. But yeah, with that said, Vince McMahon, we had said it kind of off mic earlier, just about he's an interesting character. It seemed to be the character started to take over the man himself, as we see in these lawsuits that have arisen in the past few weeks. Some would say headline grabbers, to say the least. Some would also say this is why Dwayne Johnson showed back up and took over wrestling to get all of the attention off of this humongous mess of bodies about to fall out of this man's condo, per this lawsuit, and others when you asked them about the culture that WWE/F back in the day represented. So I'll start here. Nasif, as you read through the lawsuit and what you understand about just sexual abuse, and in this case, like they were using terms like sex trafficking that he is getting charged with. So on a serious level, like, do you think Vince will like be sitting on at a stand and be on actual like trial, or is he going to be able to pay his way out of this like he had so many things in the past?
Well, with regard to the lawsuit by Janelle Grant, that would be a situation where if they settle the case, then that sort of settles the discovery matters and the case is settled. And these sorts of lawsuits, actually, you can remember with Kobe Bryant, can actually affect a federal investigation into any kind of criminal activity. Because if you've got a lawsuit taking place and the plaintiff or petitioner in that lawsuit, and this is to be devil's advocate here, and I'm by no means an expert in these matters, but just having looked into it, you have a plaintiff or defendant who files a lawsuit, and then they settle the case. It can seem potentially a prosecutor might be hesitant to go and prosecute that case because they're concerned that in front of a jury it could seem like something of a money grab by the defendant or plaintiff. Okay, well, she took the money, she's good, she's not suing anymore. It kind of takes the wind out of the sails of a federal criminal investigation. But in terms of what I've read through, I wouldn't be surprised if this was the beginning of everyone associated with Vince McMahon, including Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, extricated from the company completely. When you brought up the point of The Rock, I wouldn't be surprised if The Rock is kind of brought on board to sort of fill the void potentially of a Triple H departure. Or what? I mean, I can't even. I don't know how you keep anyone associated with Vince McMahon involved in the WWE if this has any credibility at all.
That's wild. This is why I brought him on, because this is stuff that people aren't talking about right now, and I think people don't want to talk about it because, it's very speculatory, of course, in that nature, but it's very real too, in my opinion. And I think to that point that you brought up, Nasif, there around Trips and Steph, and you may not have noticed because you're not in the weeds like me and Dub are. There were periods of time where Stephanie stepped away, Vince came back. When Vince would come back,
what happened to Shane O'Mac? What happened to Shane O'Mac? He was the best character.
So Shane left the company a few years back. Mostly, right. He said just to kind of focus on his family, but there were rumblings that him and Vince were just clashing. And then Shane tried to come back again. They put him in the Royal Rumble, but apparently he came in and he had so many ideas for the Royal Rumble, and it pissed off a bunch of the wrestlers, and they were like, yeah, never again. And he tore his quad in that match, right, BA?
That was Wrestlemania last year when he tore his quad in that random spot with Snoop Dogg.
Yes, that's what it was.
Not laughing at someone ripping a quad to half, but still, it's comedy. Y'all remember it from last year's WrestleMania.
But Nasif, to your point about Triple H and Stephanie, so the reason Stephanie McMahon has stepped away from the company is they say rumored to be about some of this stuff. Is the rumblings were there and she didn't want anything to be associated with her father at all from these rumors. So she completely left the company. The word on the rumor mill is that he doesn't see his grandkids at all. And it's all because of that. And then when they forced him out, when it initially came out with the first set of payoffs, where that girl was just going to take her payoffs, but it leaked, he stepped away and she came back. And then in July of 2022, when he made his power move by rearranging the board and everything, that's when she left again. Because again, she wants nothing to do with him. So could you see a world in where because the board didn't find anything, they can say hey, we don't know what Triple H or Stephanie or anybody that was closely associated with Vince really knew outside of obviously John Laurinaitis, who's also named in this lawsuit, and that's kind of how they stick around. Because I think, to me, part of why the board investigation didn't go anywhere, because they started to realize ooh, we don't want to corroborate what we knew and didn't know, so they don't get us the fuck up out of here.
That makes sense.
I think I understand your question. I mean, what I found interesting in the report is all these nameless, faceless characters that appear throughout the complaint. And that was interesting to me in the sense of, I mean, for one thing, as the plaintiff, they're not necessarily trying to create any animosity potentially with these witnesses, even some of whom might have done some harm to the petitioner. But it's almost like, I mean, think about it. If you're pinpointing Vince McMahon and Laurinaitis, and you're referencing all these other people who might have done something, borderline criminal to you, but you're not naming them. What would be the point of not naming them exactly? And that's almost putting pressure on Vince to sort of settle the case, or else all these names are going to come to light. Because if this case isn't settled in the discovery process, Triple H, what's his real name? Paul
Levesque.
Paul Levesque.
I'm talking about this. I'm still referring to him as Triple H. Like,
He'll always be Triple H.
Yeah. The game.
Stephanie, everyone can be deposed, which is where you sit down with both attorneys are there, and an attorney can object for the record, but essentially they're going to have to answer every single question if there's even a chance it could lead to probative or relevant evidence. So you're allowed to ask questions that aren't even admissible in trial, but they might lead to something that's admissible. Where did you go March 7th?
Man.
Florida. Why does it matter where I went in March 7th? I have nothing to do with the case. Well, it matters because it might lead to exactly this conversation that we're referencing that was overheard. So if this case isn't settled and there's credibility, which I think we all feel like there probably is, this rabbit hole is endless in who you can call upon as witnesses, depose. I don't think money's going to be an issue here in terms of like her legal team, right? So
now, I'm glad you brought that part up, Nasif, about her and her legal team. Now, the lawyer that's representing Janelle Grant, I guess a bunch of women have come to her with complaints about Vince, to the point where they said like a couple weeks ago that she can't even handle the workload of what's coming to her from this lawsuit getting in the news, and other women feeling empowered to speak up now. So with that said, what would you think that would mean for this lawsuit, particularly that we know about, like these other complaints that will come? Would these have any weight? Is it just more of like me too? I got stuff happen to me too. Like, what is that gonna do? Like, and I guess the overall picture for Vince, he only got so much money. Like, you can only pay off so many. And
got over $1 billion, it seems.
Yes. Like the great Bret Hart, they interviewed him and asked him some questions about it. And Bret Hart's a very matter-of-fact guy, to say the least. Very bitter man in his later years. And I get it. And I'm not saying he shouldn't be. And I'm sure for him, I'll say, fuck you, Bill Goldberg. But with that all being said, he stated that Vince is just a guy that has too much fucking money. That's what he said. He has too much money and he can get away with whatever he wants. Nothing can stick on him. But I think this is gonna be sticky, man. Like there's something just about the fact that, to your point, you brought it up, that you have to all the names not being named, and it seems as if she's Janelle Grant, and when I say she's trying to pull some sort of card to where if you don't pay me more, these names are gonna come out. What would the other complaints do in reference to that? Like these names that are being protected for some reason. Well, I know the reason, but that are being protected and not being named. And what would take for those names to come out? Would it be a trial? Or they are forever going to be redacted as WWE corporate officer number whatever and all that kind of stuff? Tell me a little more about that if you can.
Well, it seems like her complaint is really focused on Laurinaitis, WWE, and Vince McMahon, and administrators throughout the board of the WWE. And so she's keeping her beef pretty selective to these 3 bad actors. And I think maybe why go ahead and name these other folks and create some animosity with them?
Got it.
Who knows? I mean, maybe their identity might be sealed in some way, especially because if her attorneys want to question this person in a deposition, and then every attorney will tell you they're never going to ask a question in a trial with someone on the stand that they don't know the answer to. And they know the answer to the questions because they've submitted interrogatories, which are written questions to only party members. Depending on the jurisdiction you're in, you're allowed like 20, I think, in Massachusetts, not sure in Connecticut, but the petitioner and the respondents, the person making the allegations, and Vince McMahon and Laurinaitis, I believe he's mentioned in the complaints, they'd be able to send each other interrogatories, which are written questions and answers, and they have to answer them. If there's even a remote chance it could lead to probative evidence. 20 apiece, maybe something like that, maybe 25, 30.
Got it.
But anyone else, if there's a chance it could lead to probative, or meaning like there's a chance to show fault or relevant evidence, pretty much the same thing, they'd be able to sit for a deposition. So Paul Levesque, Stephanie McMahon, if there's a chance, especially with regard to the board's investigation. So my understanding is that, was it a former Sony executive was kind of the lead on the board of that investigation into Vince?
Would that be
then
Nick
they
Khan?
may have, yes, I think so.
Nick Khan was the leading investigator? I didn't know that. Interesting.
That's what I believe of the board.
Very interesting.
But was his daughter still on the board while they're conducting this investigation? That seems like a clear conflict of interest.
I want to say no, and that might be why she had to step away at that period of time too, because of that point right there, conflict of interest. Well, that means, would an in-law be conflict of interest, or is it just direct blood? Because Trips was there.
I mean, I would think so, right? Like, there's a chance, like, his wife's in his ear. I would think, is that why Triple H went to, like, talent coordinator or something like that? Content?
No, that's what his title always was, to my knowledge, right, Doug?
Well, no, he took kind of a demotion from chief content officer to like president of like live events or something like that, but still kind of maintained some of the same responsibilities. And it was looked at as something of Vince again making a power play to keep his company his, because when that happened, the NXT call-ups were starting to happen, and they were all Triple H and Dusty's kids. So it was starting to look like, even without gaining more influence with responsibilities, he just had more influence because these are the kids that he essentially raised in the WWE system. So that's when that happened. And then when they got Vince the fuck up out of here, they were like, yeah, Tripp, so you know what it is. It's time. This is your company now, essentially. Nasif, I did have one question for you. As far as the other complainants go, what would have to happen, not other complainants, but other, people who have said things have happened to them, what would have to happen for this to kind of morph from one lawsuit to a class action if there are that many people like involved in this?
This wouldn't fall into the category of like a class action. Class action is more like NCAA football players that had a defunct helmet, or consumers that all purchased a product or were affected indirectly by a product. This is a personal lawsuit, and we can go through the counts. The first, I believe it is so the counts are mentioned from this is I think it's a 66-page complaint.
Of 67. 66 of 67.
Thank you. And so the counts range from like page 55 to 67, but essentially they're seeking declaratory relief that the NDA is invalid because the NDA concerns sexual abuse dispute. So I think it was I want to get this right. Come on, BA. It's on page 55.
Come on, Nasif.
So just to clarify that, Nasif, NDAs are invalid if they're used to cover up anything that's criminal. Is that correct? Okay.
Correct. That would be an invalid contract.
Okay. Interesting.
I know a little bit of something, BA. Paid attention to sport law and watch a lot of SVU, man. Let me tell you.
All right. Is there a Vince episode? Sorry.
Oh, that's coming. I'm sure they watching stuff happen right now. Like, man, I wish we weren't done with season 25. Season 26 might be all about Vince.
Sorry, Nasif, we cut you off, man.
The first count is declaratory relief that the NDA is voided under the Speak Out Act, which was passed in 2022, December 7th. So that's regarding any sexual assault dispute. The second count is declaratory relief that it's also avoided under Connecticut common law, which is not a statute or a law that's written in the books. It's just case law that basically, because of Connecticut, the rulings of judges throughout time, going back to England, that based on a number of principles there that starts on page 55. You can find it if you just Google a complaint, PDF, sort of thing. There's a negligence claim against the WWE that I believe is count 4 violation of against McMahon and Laurinaitis.
No,
this is I think the count 3 is about a civil battery, and that is also sexual in nature, I believe. Count 4, participating in venture. WWE is violating the statute against the Speak Out Acts, I believe.
Got it.
Negligence against the WWE. That's when negligence is you owe someone a duty, you breach that duty. The breach is the actual and proximate cause of the person's harm, and they've always got to suffer damages. So you got to have those 5 elements. And she certainly endured some damages. She's seeking both punitive damages and compensatory damages, which, legal fees, and medical costs, and all that.
So let me ask you this question. So if I'm the WWE,
it goes on. Obviously, there's 9 counts.
Yeah. So if I'm the WWE, do you think it would be wise for them to sever themselves from Vince in this to be like a separate defendant and then try to settle out the negligence claim so that way they're not further dragged into Vince's mud? Just saying, hey, we're not admitting any fault, but bad things happen. Maybe not. Here's a boatload of money. Can we just get us out of this? Is that something they can do, and something should they do, in your opinion?
That's a great question. I think it may be something that they can do. Reach out to the plaintiff and say, hey, look, we're terribly sorry. You're right, and we'd like to settle this with you and make this right however we can. And they may agree to amend their complaint and drop them as a plaintiff or a litigant. It seems like I think if the defendants were wise, they'd do everything they could to drop this. I mean, I'm not really sure what happened with the original NDA. He paid supposedly $1 million, according to her, and didn't follow up with the other 2.
Yeah, this is what Vince does. I'm glad you brought that point up, Nasif. So in the past, Vince is big into the quote "fuck you" energy. As far as when he says he's gonna do something, he'll do it and then be like, I'm not doing the rest, and what are you gonna do about it? And I think in his senileness, as he's gotten older, I think that this is where he kind of the I'm Vince McMahon, damn it energy just completely took over all of his thinking to the point of all we're talking about here now, because he has to be out of his mind to not want to pay that bill. And I think it's because it's not like he doesn't have it to not pay it. So
we don't really know what's happened. And there's a number of things that could happen here. For all we know, they are in settlement discussions, but Vince has yet to file an answer. He's got a certain amount of time when a complaint's filed against you to file an answer.
Didn't know that.
Your side of the story. And he hasn't done that yet. This was filed, I think, January 24th.
That tracks.
Well, he has.
So what does he have, 30 or 60 days or something?
But his answer in the public is, I plan to vehemently fight this to the end, which does not sound like a wise decision for anyone involved.
That sounds like trial talk. Would you say, Nasif, this is going to go to trial if he's fighting and not settling?
Well, correct. I mean, you can settle a case at any point, but the first step is an answer, and there's a time limit on that. I've never been in federal court, so I'm going to Google right now, just a little reminder.
Oh, you're good. No worries there. And as you Google that, there is other things that have developed, and I'm not sure if you're aware of these developments or not, in the last week, where also a defendant in the case, John Laurinaitis, Johnny Ace, has said he's trying to countersue against Vince as well as a victim, saying that Vince made him do these things, which is wild.
Now, I saw his lawyer wrote, I believe, a letter to the Wall Street Journal claiming that he's, a victim in this as well. But I mean, what you say outside of court and what you say inside of court and emotions is two very different things. You can, for example, once again, to be devil's advocate, with regard to people coming out of the woodwork to this litigant with stories about Vince, there's a federal investigation right now, and my understanding is that there's 5 women participating in the investigation as witnesses going back to 1986, that first accusation against Vince of
the referee, the woman referee.
1986.
Yeah.
So
Jesus.
why is it that we can confirm there's 5 witnesses cooperating with federal authorities? If there are people coming out of the woodwork, why are they reaching out to Ms. Grant as opposed to the federal authorities that are investigating this?
That's sketchy. Never thought about that.
That's a good point.
I mean, I'm not sure if they're releasing names, right, of witnesses, but I mean, from what I've read, there's 5 people confirmed. So 21 days. He's got 21 days to file an answer.
Oh shit,
So
that's
clock's
like
ticking.
that's like this
That's
week.
like, yeah, that's soon as fuck.
Wow, that's interesting. Well, as far as other big questions I've had to pick your mind, Nasif, the whole WWE at fault thing, because Dub kind of talked on it with the negligence you did too. Let's say after we look at the former Sony executive Nick Khan's investigation of when he looked into everything, and they said that they didn't find anything in that investigation, right, Dub? When they originally investigated?
They didn't really say. They just kind of said they were investigating, and then Vince just kind of walked away. So, you know, like, when you don't have anybody to investigate, you just kind of, it's over. It's out of the news cycle.
I've got it right here from the New York Times. Well, the investigation's full findings have not been released. WWE said in a financial filing in 2022 that Mr. McMahon personally made at least $14.6 million in payments to women who accused him of misconduct from 2006 to 2022. So that kind of sounds like the findings of the investigation, and I think they said something to the effect of they should have been reported as business expenses. I don't know why that should be reported as business expenses, perhaps because he was the owner of a private company. I'm not sure when they went
public. They went public in the 90s, late 90s, like 99, 2000 is when they went public.
So that's always confused me when someone makes a payment personally. It's like, isn't this coming from his personal bank accounts after his salary and what have you? But they're saying that should have been listed as business statements, and the petitioner in this complaint says that, they're trying to pass this off as like an accounting error as opposed to actually being accountable for what they found. They did protect themselves, though, that investigation by hiring an outside law firm to conduct the investigation. So you can't really hold civilians responsible for an investigation conducted by a law firm, Simpson, Thatcher, and Bartlett, LLP, to conduct the investigation. New York-based law firm. Simpson, Thatcher, Bartlett. They're probably pretty good, right?
I'd imagine.
I don't think so. I mean, Janelle Grant said they didn't talk to her at all during that whole investigation. But
and I think Khan came out and said they reached out to her, but that's kind of crazy that they don't get a hold of her. Now, maybe she didn't want to participate at all for some reason. I doubt
it's weird.
That, but
it doesn't add up into that.
Maybe because they might perceive their internal investigation as something of a ruse of like they're trying to see what we know, what we have, and begin to prepare their defense, sort of thing. And their attorney, Ms. Grant, is saying, "Hey, look, we know our case. We're going to file a federal lawsuit, and we'll get justice that way. We don't worry about the WWE's internal investigation." But
I got you. Well, to that point, though, I'm glad we got that deep on that subject. So what if it comes out that the WWE or the people that are controllers, the board members, so to speak, from a stock standpoint, SEC law now, and they knew a lot more than they let on through all the formal investigations. Now WWE is owned by TKO, who's a conglomerate that also owns UFC. This deal was done last year, I believe, around the TKO acquisition of WWE. And if all these things are happening, I'm sure these discussions of the acquisition were happening before it actually was announced. What does that do for the acquisition? Does this dissolve it? They're back on their own. UFC's back on their own. Do they just get rid of the players involved and everything is as is?
I think I told you guys when we weren't recording, I should preface all my comments with, I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. I did like civil litigation for like tenants and landlords, in New York City for a few years. And of course, I was VA's parole officer, I mentioned, and representing myself for some small nonviolent crimes. But
non-violent small crimes.
SEC, my understanding, is more about financial disclosure and insider trading and revealing certain facts that you're obligated to reveal every quarter. And in September of 2022, they did come out with a statement, right, that Vince McMahon being associated with him could bring negative press or something to that effect, that there have been, that being associated with him, they made like some reference to, I think perhaps the payments to the women. I think they might have said $12 to $14.6 million that should have been accounted as business expense. So really, that's all they're required to do. I mean, it doesn't sound as extreme as it is.
Right.
They're not saying, it's too bad because this is serious allegations, but there was a wrestler who I heard on a podcast like screaming about this. You hear that your boss was taking a dump on someone's head. But,
yeah, with all that, I mean, shit. It's all interesting to me in that light. Because I feel like it just, in my honest opinion, knowing that company, watching wrestling for a very long time, you can't tell me Vince was not, and I think it's starting to come out now, like he was making jokes about this. Like there was inside jokes about a lot of the stuff about it. Because there's other, Bret Hart also said there's a lot more people that behave like this, that have control in WWE. Yeah. And he left it at
I don't know what he was thinking. First of all, he's text messaging, which is completely traceable. I don't know if he thinks he's smart getting like someone else's name on the cell phone and like the texts are just stream of consciousness texts that are just like
wild,
insane.
He definitely uses speech to text for sure.
Like the Tracy Morgan.
There was a part that I got so much of this Bret Hart stuff because they had him asking if that sounded like Vince, and there was a certain line he said in the text. He said "Holy shit" in a text, and Bret Hart said that's absolutely Vince's name. That's something he would definitely say. I'm like, man, Vince really just he shit the bed. He didn't wet the bed. He shit, and there is shit everywhere. Shout out and RIP to Bob Saget for that line. There is shit everywhere.
Yeah, so I think the investigation was conducted with Stephanie McMahon on the board and Triple H. So that just seemed kind of crazy to me. And then they went out and retained a law firm to conduct the investigation or continue to do that. So I think it's likely if this does go to trial, there could be like findings that it was a half-hearted investigation, that it was, and you're entitled to like work product to be confidential between you and your attorney, unless it is something like this where you're hiring a firm to investigate these sorts of allegations, potentially crimes. If the basis of this retention was to investigate this matter, and that matter's at issue here, it very well could be relevant evidence, I think. But I mean, how about you guys? Like, if you knew Stephanie and Triple H were still associated with WWE, or you saw Stephanie holding a mic in the center of the ring next year, how would you feel? Like, personally, I feel like I might feel a little grimy seeing that. Like, I
think she did too. That's why she left.
Yeah.
She knew too much type stuff, man. I think she knew too much. That's your dad, man. That's hard.
Yeah, you have like a certain like loyalty to family outside, just being family. But then the things she was starting to hear, I think was just too much. And before she had a chance to like prove it, she was just like, I'm stepping away completely. I'm done with this.
Has she left?
Yeah, she's completely out of the company.
She's been gone. Yeah. She's like her and like Triple H, and I don't know if you knew this or not, Nasif, he had like a huge heart attack like 4 years ago, Doug, something like that. And when that happened, Stephanie came back. Stephanie was gone at first. That's when Trips got his demotion and all that stuff. When he went home to heal up from his surgery, Stephanie came back to help with all of this stuff, I'm assuming. And as soon as Triple H was back, she left.
I thought she might have taken a step back just as like for appearance's sake. And I mean, when I read through the history, like Vince is just a diabolical, like
madman,
like evil genius. But like he steps away from the company, but he retains his majority shares. And like 6 months or a year later, he replaces 3 members of the board and has himself placed as the chairman of the board of TKO.
That's what I'm saying around the whole, like...
It's like some Darth Vader stuff.
He absolutely is worse than Darth Vader, man. Shit. Darth Vader at least was a human being at one point. I've questioned that.
But how is he smart enough to do this and he's writing the stream of consciousness text?
He's not thinking. That's what we call in our show white hubris, Nasif. That means that you are just moving in a plane in which that you think you are untouchable because you haven't been touched yet. And to that point, when you haven't been touched, you don't think as if somebody that's had to deal with something before.
You gotta remember, he beat that steroid trial in the 80s when everybody was everybody was like, oh yeah, that's steroids all the way. That's steroids for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He beat that. I'm pretty sure that's the moment where his hubris completely took over his complete mind and said, I'm untouchable for fucking ever. And then in the early 2000s, he bought his biggest competition. Yeah, no, I can understand. I can understand why hubris would take over in that man, like the way it has. Not defending anything he did, it's disgusting, but I understand the hubris of I'm never getting caught for this, and fuck you.
Yeah, and to that point, like
don't forget.
There's an episode of Dark Side of the Ring where they're talking about the steroid trial and Vince's lawyer that's represented forever. And they said at the end of the trial, when they were celebrating, Vince was in the bar because he was wearing a neck brace the whole time to kind of try to sell sadness and shit that people feel bad for him. He was in the bar waving that bitch around his head after it was all said and done, getting wasted. To the point of why we are here now with Vince. What I will say, because there's one thing I want to bring up before we kind of get to the close of this segment. You had brought up Vince was kind of behaving like WWE was like he was trying to write off his personal, like business expenses, the stuff he was doing for personal reasons. This is where I think that they're going to get in trouble because of how Vince would come in and change stuff around because I'm Vince McMahon, damn it, I'm the owner, I call the shots. It's going to fuck over the WWE, I feel like. As we twist and turn down this road, there's going to be a point where because Vince was doing too much, it's going to fuck up the brand some sort of way or fashion. There's too much that's happened for the Shield to be completely protected. The Shield being the company, which his baby. He was wilding out with it. So I just think that, in my opinion, in closing, somebody or something's gonna have to pay for this, and it's gonna affect. It might not affect the product you see on TV, but it's gonna be a ripple more backstage in the corporate culture of that company. I feel like, for better or worse.
Oh, it can only be for better at this point, right?
I don't know, bruh. Only time will tell. Time will reveal.
Because if the allegations are credible as they seem, and they didn't know anything, no one knew anything there. I mean, Laurinaitis clearly knew about what was going on. He's a victim. He's a 6 foot something, like 300-pound victim, corporate executive.
Hey man,
Vince McMahon.
Vince had mind control over a lot of those old wrestlers because Vince controlled everything. He was wrestling for a long time, still is wrestling. You could argue until he got kicked out. And those guys that all their life was wrestling and they don't have anything else going on in their lives but wrestling, it was like you can't bite the hand that feeds you, no matter how mean that can be. That hand can be.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, the idea that this worldwide multi-billion-dollar company, corporate institution, the idea that none of these people had any idea what he was doing. And if there's a pattern of hiring these people and moving them around, and the idea that Triple H didn't kind of have, I mean, who knows really? But if they don't settle, I'm sure that they're going to dig up some facts and some evidence to support their claims. And again, I just don't see how anyone associated with Vince McMahon can stick around after this.
It tells me that they must know that they must be getting ready to write some humongous checks. That's all I can say.
They brought on The Rock. I believe The Rock also brought onto the board someone from his company who was a WWE writer from the Attitude Era.
That guy came a board member? I didn't know that. I know he was around, but he's a board? That's wild. I'm not going to...
If you stand next to The Rock, good things will happen to you.
Man, don't be related to him. Really good things will happen to you. Man, so I mean, with that said, Nasif, thank you, man. I think you brought a whole level of education to this that I don't think is being discussed in the mainstream like wrestling content that exists out here. So thank you for that, man. Dub, you got anything else for our law expertise here?
So in your honest opinion, Nasif, if you were sitting in that room with Vince and all of those guys, you would tell them, don't you dare just go to Discovery, right?
Oh, yeah, you got to throw everything at this to make it go away. I mean, what numbers is going to be enough? And interesting to me, the courage in coming forth with her name, like identifying herself. I understand she said the name might have been leaked by someone close to the WWE, but I mean, this is a case that already, I mean, you don't recover from this if you're Vince McMahon, right? So I guess the sooner it's out of the public eye, the better. But I don't know, if I'm the litigant, how would you feel? Would you want to settle, or do you want to establish these things?
I mean,
depends on the
that's
number.
what I'm saying. To that point, the fact Vince said he's vehemently gonna fight it. I think Vince is done right.
Well, he said he's looking forward to clearing his name and these were lies and whatnot, but I don't know that he indicated he's interested in fighting so much. But, I'll tell you, I was at the SmackDown in Boston when Vince had stepped down that day. And before they went to air, Stephanie said the WWE owes him, a debt of gratitude. And that's all you thought there would be more. All she said. But then she did look into the camera and mouth, "I love you, Dad."
Oh, that is... The documentary they make about all this in 3 to 5 years is going to be epic, because that's wild. I forgot about that. That did happen. That I know exactly what you're talking about.
They just need to bring Shane O'Mac back in full force and scourge everyone else.
If his quads could handle it. His kids are like D1 athletes. He's flying around the country watching his kids play at North Carolina and Indiana.
He takes Linda's last name and just... Why are all these guys always ripping their quads? Is that some sort of hydrating thing?
Leg day, pal.
I have no clue.
That's why. Because Vince squats 800 pounds. That's why. Because he ripped his squads too.
Both of them at the same damn time.
Yes.
But these guys though, Vince McMahon, Kevin Spacey, didn't you always think there's something kind of off about them?
Vince, absolutely. All my thoughts have been confirmed through this lawsuit. Everything I ever thought about Vince, as far as how he wrote his character and the weird things I saw him do over the years.
No one wants to see you with your shirt off. What are you doing?
No one telling women to bark like dogs, making characters say all sorts of...
Kiss My Ass Club.
The Kiss My Ass Club was very strange growing up. Why do you want grown men to kiss your butt? Man?
Yeah.
Right.
It's weird. On TV, and you love pulling your ass out.
Hubris.
White or hubris.
It's real, man. So no, with that said, this is our law segment of Let Me Book the Territory. Thank you again, Nasif, for joining us.
Thank you guys for having me.
For this segment.
I'm sure you guys, heart goes out to anyone negatively affected by this.
Yes,
really
absolutely.
Sad. Yet another childhood titan torn down, but good riddance. But you guys are doing a great podcast, great show. I love that you guys have brought back the nostalgia and something real, and love what you do.
Thank you, man. We really appreciate it.
Homie. Appreciate
Absolutely.
that,
Keep it going.
man. We'll do. With that said...
All right. Stay with us, because WWE Nation needs you now more than ever. I think get a girl on the show. We need a girl.
We do need a woman's voice.
We do need a woman's voice.
We do need a woman's voice.
That is very good.
We're working on that. We gotta get our ladies. We gotta get either the wise woman, my wife, Miss Taylor, or the big AR, E's girl. More on the week to week. They'll watch when we watch and comment when it's fun, but they're not in the weeds like we. So
yeah, they had something, my friend's wife saying, "Oh, Flo Rida is almost as big as The Rock." It's
that's wild. That's egregious. With that said, we are out of here for this segment, folks.
All right, guys.
Check us out.
Thanks for having me.
sir.
All right, Nasif. Later.